Mindlessly singing the summer away, the grasshopper is something I'd always thought gay. But when the bitter winter came, it seemed dispirited and lame. To a neighbouring ant it went, to beg and moan its single intent. The larder is empty, and without a doubt I'll starve before the winter's out. Please give me something to eat, a crumb, a biscuit, a grain of wheat, something to last till after the frost and rain, something to last until the sun comes again. The ant was such a selfish, prudent, busy thing, and was never much disposed to lend a crumb of any ant-owned thing. The grasshopper screeched, aware of the frost, "A crumb of wheat before I'm lost." How did you spend your summer, my mindless friend? Like any grasshopper I sang, and sang without end. Well then, I can see that white frost approach, and think it is time for your death dance.
In a wood, a goblin, who had seen little of the world, chanced upon a traveller half dead from the cold. He said, "Human creature, come quickly to my cave, otherwise the frost might make a stiff and glittering grave." The traveller thanked him kindly, then blew upon his hands. When the goblin asked him why, he said, "It is to make them warm." Once inside the cave, the goblin brought a bowl of steaming gruel. Upon this the traveller blew, just to make it cool. "Be off with you," the goblin cried. "Do you take me for a fool, to believe that from a single mouth you can blow both hot and cool?"
Two mules met on a lonely road beside a darkening wood that many a robber had tiptoed through in search of mulish blood. One carried gold, one carried corn. One was proud of its burden, the other forlorn. corn-bearing mule, the other laughed, as they travelled on down a single path. We carry in weight the same heavy load, but mine is superior, mine is of gold. Long after midnight, 2 robbers came. They ignored the mule that carried the grain. They fought its companion, but fear made it bold, and it kicked and refused to give up the gold. The robbers stabbed the mule in the heart, and thereby cut its struggle short. They tiptoed off through the dreadful wood, loaded with gold and covered in blood. With its dying breath, the mule exclaimed, "Those who carry their master's gold are fools. The value of corn is easy to see, and a world full of gold is useless to me." Invited by a rich friend from town, the country mouse donned his visiting gown. He thought it would be a pleasure to go to somewhere so busy and well-to-do. He arrived on time inside the wall, between the kitchen and the hall. Processed cheese, yogurt drops and crumbs were set before the friendly chums. They began to eat this splendid fare when a noise disturbed the munching pair. It was a human with its craft of knowing where mice both eat and nest. Both mice beat a quick retreat. The town mouse, of course, was twice as fleet. He had lived with fear all his life, the trap, the poison, the sharpened knife. You will, of course, quite easy guess at his country friend's distress. He firmly refused to stay in town and left behind his visiting gown. Pleasure is tasteless when mixed with fear. I think I had better leave you here. The social life is not for me when attended by human atrocity. In a field I like to rest, where no humans know my nest. I'll face an owl any day. That is the country mouse's way.
In a place dark, disguised, a place not fit for our eyes. In a hollow, ancient tree, the owl speaks philosophically. About my feet are swarms of mice, and I can easily leave them there. For from their feet I've ripped their toes, and now they'll not go anywhere. I eat them slowly at my ease, I pick and choose them as I please. The fattest ones I let digest before indulging in the next. I bring them corn into my croft. It keeps them alive and it keeps them soft. Before this idea came to me, they were nimble and ran away. Now I've neatly torn the paws from each, and they panic forever within my reach. This trick mankind viewed with alarm before inventing the cattle farm. Travellers are quickly passing among the trees lush with apples. In an orchard they stop, wide-eyed and gaping, at a church's overpowering spires, stones and grey steeples. Yet all who through that orchard pass stare more bewildered by the glass, and in the future what they recall is not the church's solemn air, but windows seen while passing there. King of all beasts deep in the wood roared as loudly as it could, and when from a cave the echo came back, the line thought itself under attack. What voice is that roars like mine? The echo replied, mine, mine. Who might you be? Asked the furious line. I'm king of this jungle is mine. And the echo came back for a third time. This jungle is mine. The lion swore it would murder its enemy if only it could discover its whereabouts in that deep wood. It roared, mimic, come out and show yourself. But the fearless echo replied simply, elf. Come out, roared the lion, enough deceit. Do you fear for your own defeat? But all the echo did was repeat the cankerous word, defeat. Frightened by every conceivable sound, the exhausted lion sank to the ground. A bird in a tree looked down and it said, sweet beast, I'm afraid what you hear is simply the voice of your lion-sized fear.
The astrologer will always gape and wonder at how his forecast was a blunder. Though on his advice kings did depend, their fortunes tottered in the end. His instruments could not forecast who would be the first to go, who last. No matter what prophecies he made, at their outcome he was dismayed. Then that same bird, sitting in a tree, sang without the aid of astrology. Who forecasts the day's end before its close saddens what is left of time. Not even a god forecasts the woe of all that comes to pass below.
Sneaking close to a window pane, a fox heard her mother vexed. Say harshly to her screaming child, I'll feed you to the fox. The fox was rather hungry, the baby nice and fat. It thought how peculiar humans were to do a thing like that. It was very grateful, and for some reason it felt proud. It hoped the baby would scream again, very soon and very loud. It did, and yet the mother, regretting what she said, murmured, if a fox comes, my love, we'll shoot the creature dead. Ah. Fickle, fickle, thought the fox, very fickle that. I'll no longer drag it home, and it was so nice and fat.
In the marshland, the froggy minions prayed night long for a king. They heard a splash upon the water and heard a bullfrog sing. They thought their prayers had been answered and gathered in great fear. The bravest of them eventually to the bullfrog drew near. It did not move from where it sat, unblinking in the mist. And when the bravest of them challenged it, the bullfrog did not resist. This is no king, said the bravest. This is nothing to boast about. We want a king to guard the pond and keep our enemies out. Another splash, and upon the soaking bank a huge stork appeared. They shivered when they saw the thing, and they pushed the bravest near. It gobbled up their ambassador, then set about the rest. This is not the king we want, they cried. Surely this is not the best. A voice that came from nowhere whispered of a curse. Every time you deny a king, it said, the one that follows will be worse.
Languid, lethargic, listless and slow, the tortoise would dally, an image of sloth. Immobile, stagnant, to the hare it was both. Enough of your insults, I seek satisfaction. I'll run you a race and win by a fraction. Thus challenged the tortoise one afternoon. Right, said the hare, and let it be soon. They decided they'd race right through the wood, and the tortoise set off as fast as it could. The hare followed at a leisurely pace, quite confident it could win the race. The tortoise thought as it ambled along, I have never been faster or quite so strong. The hare, on the other hand, was often inclined to stop at the wayside and improve its mind. Read a fable by Aesop deep in the wood, then of course it set off as fast as it could. It decided it would put that fable aright as it sped along with the speed of a light. Languid, lethargic, listless and slow, the tortoise ran fast as a tortoise could go. If the hare, having decided and saving its face, quite easily managed to win the race. I feel, said the tortoise, that I've been deceived, for fables are things that I've always believed. I'd love to have won a race so clearly designed, to point out a moral both old and refined. Losing a race would not matter, the hare said, for in speed Mother Nature placed me ahead. Some fables are things you ought to contest. Dear tortoise, in mine, I'm afraid you have come last.
There was a plague among the chickens, there was a plague among the rats, there was a plague among the ravens and the mice and voles and bats. There was a plague among the squirrels, there was a plague among young cats, there was a plague among the herons and the fish and water rats. There was a plague among the pigeons, there was a plague among the snails, there was a plague among the sparrows and the ducks and geese and quails. There was one fox who knew the cure. They went knocking on his door. Only the fox knew the cure. Dr. Fox, please come out and treat us. For once we are all agreed. You will do your best to cure us if you want your food unplagued. But Dr. Fox did not answer. From his den came no reply. He had scarpered from the stricken wood and left the food to die.
The cricket chirped while a hare lay dozing. It chirped while a bird sang upon the fragile branches to which a million blossoms clung. Then one day in a battle by a goat the line was rammed. It declared that from its kingdom all things with horns were banned. Ah, goodbye, said the hare. Goodbye, my friend, I think I ought to go. On the grass the shadow of my ears I've seen, and they are like horns when the sun is low. You might as well say my antennae are horns. Dear hare, you're in a state. I think between horns and ears the line can easily differentiate. When blinded by rage or by a ram, I'm sure the line can mistake ears for horns as it crawls about, so full of pain and hate. And even if he knows they are ears, you might still decide the best to purge all things that remind him of the horns he's grown to detest. The cricket chirped while a hare retreated. It chirped while a bird sang upon the fragile branches to which a million blossoms clung.
Miss Winifred Weasel, long and thin, all night sneaked round the farm, until she came to a narrow slit newly opened in the barn. Winifred Weasel, long and thin, squeezed her frame neatly in. Miss Winifred Weasel felt at ease. She was quite amazed by all she saw. She attacked the carrots and the cheese, and kept one eye upon the door. Winifred Weasel, long and thin, squeezed her frame neatly in. Miss Winifred Weasel nibbled and gnawed, rotund, nay, fat soon she grew, and when the mouse came it deplored how she had eaten enough for two. Winifred Weasel, long and thin, squeezed her frame neatly in. Suddenly, outside the barn, she heard the noise of human feet. She danced about in great alarm, but could find no way to retreat. Winifred Weasel, long and thin, squeezed her frame neatly in. She found the place where she got in, but by now was far too fat to quit. She wished on her life she was still thin, and could squeeze out through the narrow slit. Winifred Weasel, once long and thin, doomed by her greed to be cased in.
Once an old rat had a premonition, no doubt due to its condition. Rat veins clogging with thick rat blood, headaches, rheumatism, cramp in the neck, incontinent, sluggish, a pain in the leg. It knew in a year it would be dead. It foraged in sewers and tips and in fields for any of the good earth's numerous yields. Exhausted, it pushed into its nest bacon rind, pre-packed loaves, and bits of foodstuff it thought might last. It gathered enough for a year at least. It had been a gay rat, a rat about town. In the walls of the best restaurants it was often found. It went to the theatre, dined in the cellar at 8. Debonair, it made the right social calls, and when asked, it would wait. But now its social appetite was sated. Among its food for death it waited. Late autumn frost now bends the grass. Snowflakes fall and quickly pass. Its friends call and with solemn faces chat of its life and its long-gone romances. They pick at the food so plentifully stored, then leave after a brief interlude. Now much more strained are its circumstances, for larder is barren and fewer its chances. Rat veins clogging with thick rat blood, headaches, rheumatism, cramp in the neck, incontinent, sluggish, a pain in a leg. In a week of starvation, it's bound to be dead.
Unearthing marble from a fountain, an archaeologist once found something unique and fabulous buried in the ground. A toad, uncommon in appearance, fell from out a stone. It was annoyed at being woken and said, "I wish to be alone. I'm quite separate from my species. I'm quite a thing apart. I was here before the fountain. I was here from the start." The archaeologist did speculate upon what the creature claimed, and came to the conclusion that no conclusion was to be obtained. I was here before all mortals, and here before the flood. My lineage is pure and ancient, and noble is my blood. Vain boaster, said a mayfly that was hovering around, longevity is of no importance when buried in the ground. On the scum of a neighbouring river, a moment ago I was born, and I am likely to vanish long before another dawn. Yet I am divinely happy, and of offspring I am sure. I have drifted among the rosebuds, and the sun was warm and pure. Come at 7, come at 9, come whenever you want. On the shelf the printed cards seem kind in their intent, but the mouse will always stay at home, he will never venture out, no matter how the cards insist friends are all about. One's from a cat, one's from an owl, and both are intent to draw him from his nest and then have him where they want.
Once a huge dragon showed near a gap its 100 heads. My blood turned icy and refused to flow, and in my heart 100 dreads shivered on a single thread. Yet the snake could not come through, it just widened the mildewed wall. I managed to cast off fear when I knew it could not pass at all. But while staring at this morbid sight, another dragon came to light. Instead of 100 heads, 100 tails. Now more than it did before, my heart cowers and it quails. First through the gap comes a head, then one by one 100 tails. A 100 horrors quickly pass toward the next narrow gap. Yet I think it would be an error to live in that foul creature's terror. For what will come passing through when I have built the wall anew? The mouse invited a frog into its nest, saying with crumb and seed it was fully blessed. These two were not the best of friends, but mere acquaintances who would lend each other bits of useful things. One day the frog invited the mouse to sup and dine at his house. It was a dampish place hidden beneath an exposed length of willow root. The mouse declined. It shook its head. "It's out of the question, dear frog," it said. "The chance of crossing is rather slim, for mice were not designed to swim." Nonsense. The river seems twice as wide when seen through a mouse's eyes. Tie yourself to my back and then I'll jump across to the other bank. It seemed a good suggestion, so the mouse decided it would go. Halfway across, the treacherous frog decided to land on a floating log, and here it thought about the mouse's nest, and about how, with seed and crumb, it was so fully blessed. It thought it might be rather sound if the owner of that place drowned. The mouse struggled to get free. It pleaded and screamed of treachery. It attracted a passing bird of prey, which bore two struggling things away. Now two nests upon two banks are both without their occupants, and only the passing river knows this tale of two peculiar foes. finding itself too old to dive into all but the shallowest pool. The cormorant, knowing its end was near, the fish set about to fool. It waited beside the choicest pool till a fish rose up to eat. "Brother," it said, "listen to me, your doom you are soon to meet." The farmer who owns this land thinks he will gain a richer crop if from this pool the water he can drain. For a week or more inside the pool a fishy turmoil prevailed, and when a deputation finally arose to the cormorant it wailed, "We know you can dive into this pool and eat us at your will. For that reason alone we believe your tale and know you mean no ill." "Pray, bird, you must help, you know our present need. Our pool we must evacuate, we must change our home with speed." "There is a pool," the cormorant said, "not very far from here. Why, I think you ought to rise and then simply totter over there. There are no gaps within the marsh through which we can safely swim. It is impossible for us to walk, and the air you breathe is thin. Then one at a time in my beak I will ferry you all across. But keep still as I lift you out, not one life do I want lost." One by one and with relief they waited for the cormorant's beak to ferry them across the marsh to a pool that would not leak. Now in a shallow pool the fish leap and flop about, and when hunger dictates the need, the sly cormorant picks one out.